How's this? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the presentation that offers a status update on Sauk Village's water system. You probably know me. I'm Jim Zarnik, and I'm from Robinson Engineering. Robinson Engineering was asked to present an update on the progression of the improvements to the water system, what has been accomplished, what is forthcoming, and what we recommend going into the future. Our last master plan was drafted back in 2012, so it's been a few years since we've done a planning effort of this magnitude. So we figured now is the time to give you an update on where we are. So let's talk about our progress. Back in 2011, we drafted the Water Quality Improvement Plan, and we presented three different options. The first was air stripping, which was to remove the vinyl chloride from the groundwater.
Thank you.
The second was to install a reverse osmosis system. That would be in addition to the air stripping system. And basically, the quality of the water that would be produced from that system would be equivalent to Lake Michigan water, and it would be treating the groundwater. The third option was Lake Michigan water. So the village board decided to proceed with the air stripping option and the Lake Michigan water option as two options to present in a referendum. So let's put the vote, and the residents selected Lake Michigan water. So we did some water rate calculations and calculated that that option would require an increase to $10.37 per 1,000 gallons in order to pay for all those improvements that were necessary. So Robinson Engineering submitted a Lake Michigan water allocation application to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. The IDNR had a number of concerns, of which there were two significant concerns. The first was the IDNR allows a maximum water loss of 8% for obtaining Lake Michigan water. Historically, the village has had between 20% and 70% loss within their system. So basically, what's pumped out of the water, out of the ground, as compared to what's actually metered by the businesses and residents of Sauk Village, there was a difference ranging from 20% to 70%, which is significant. Public Works then repaired several large water main breaks in 2012, and the water loss was then reduced down to 20%, which was a huge improvement. Then a leak detection survey was conducted by a private firm back in 2013. Public Works repaired some of the leaks that were found, and they're still working on some of the others. I recently got the data for 2014, and taken across the entire year, unfortunately, we're back up to 32% water loss. So hopefully we can repair those other leaks that were located and then get that number back down. The goal is obviously to reduce the water loss down to below 8%, to make the village eligible for Lake Michigan water. Another of the concerns that the IDNR had was concerning Candlelight Village and Weatherstone Lakes. Those are two subdivisions within Sauk Village that receive water from Sauk Village wholesale. So as Sauk Village is hoping to receive water from a water supplier, Chicago Heights, Linwood, somebody, and they would have to apply separately to the IDNR in order to get that water. It's the same situation for Candlelight Village and Weatherstone Lakes. They would actually have to apply separately to the IDNR in order to get an allocation of Lake Michigan water. So the village would actually need to coordinate with those two entities in order to receive Lake Michigan water. Otherwise, they would be left hanging, and they don't have a water supply source of their own, such as a well. So let's talk about the water system improvements. First of all, a phased approach was selected, and very wisely and prudently selected for a number of reasons. First of all, to do all the necessary improvements to the water system would be hugely expensive. There's just no way the village could afford to do it all in one lump sum. Secondly, it would take a long time to do. And thirdly, if you can think back a number of years, back when the vinyl chloride first entered the groundwater, there was an urgent need to restore the water quality and quantity. With well 3 out of operation and wells 1 and 2 getting hits on vinyl chloride, the village was rapidly losing its safe water supply. So, phase 1 was the improvements to the existing water treatment plants. Phase 2 is the water distribution system repairs, replacements, and improvements. And phase 3 is Lake Michigan water. So let's go over these phases individually. First of all, the phase 1 water treatment plant improvements. This project is currently under construction. The water treatment plant 2 improvements are substantially complete. Well 3 is back online. Water treatment plant 1, which is wells 1 and 2, is the current focus of the construction, and we expect this project to be completed in May 2015. The village received an IEPA loan for $4.9 million for the project. In order to pay back this loan, the water rate was increased from $5.50 to $7.50 per 1,000 gallons. As I'm sure you know by now, the IEPA and Governor Quinn got together and announced a grant for 100% loan forgiveness. So basically, the village doesn't even have to pay for the project. Now, because nothing's ever easy, Governor Browner comes into office and announces that he's putting a freeze on all the fiscal spending measures that Governor Quinn enacted. Now, according to our best information at this point, we think the forgiveness is still going to go through for a couple reasons. One is that the loan, the grant process went forward without a hitch. We've got our grant application into the state, so they're reviewing it now. Also, the loan forgiveness, the source of that funding is coming from the IEPA. And because of the Clean Water Initiative, that account is flush with funds. And so there is money available to allow for 100% loan forgiveness. And the IEPA for quite some time has confided to me that that was their intent, to provide financial relief to the village. So therefore, my opinion, I think, is going to go through. Only time to tell, to know for sure. Now let's talk about the phase 2 improvements. These are system repairs, replacements, and improvements. So first of all, the water loss reduction repairs go under this category. That's what we just talked about with Public Works moving forward, and we're repairing those leaks that were detected in the survey. Secondly, we're talking about replacements of defective elements such as piping, valves, and fire hydrants. And I want to focus on fire hydrants because those are obviously critical to the village's safety in terms of fire protection. There have been a number that have been out of service for quite a while. Fortunately, Public Works has been doing a great job getting a number of those back in service with replacement parts that they have on hand. So I believe the number's up to 50% have been restored to service.
Changes because as something goes down, we try to repair it. On the weekends, we try to replace the ones that didn't repair.
We can't hear.
All right, so good progress is being made on those, but there's still more to go. Also associated with this would be water system improvements. These are additional items that would be constructed. This involves water main loops to eliminate dead ends, a second I-394 water main crossing, and an emergency water supply interconnection. So let's talk about each of those in detail. So what you see here is the village's water atlas, and I know it's hard to see this. Hang on tight, we'll get into more detail on the next slide. But basically what we did was we developed a new plan for these phase 2 improvements that involves everything that I just announced, the dead-end water mains, elimination, etc. So what we did is we went through and proposed about 14 or 15 different improvements in the system, in addition to replacing the remaining affected fire hydrants, and did a good job estimating the cost of what those improvements would be. So this is pretty much the dream for Sauk Village right here, in order to really provide a robust water system. So what are we talking about specifically with the improvements? So what you're looking at here is Plum Creek. And if you can see, coming down Plum Creek Drive on the left-hand side, is an 8-inch water main. And then at the very end, there's a cul-de-sac. And this is what we refer to as a dead end, because this water main is connected nowhere else in the system. And that results in a couple problems. First is water quality. You don't get a lot of circulation in this dead end stretch because the only usage is within these lots on the cul-de-sac. So you've got a very slow flow that's coming in here. What happens is the water tends to stagnate after a while, and that's just not good for water quality. In addition to that, in terms of reliability of delivering water, if there happens to be a water main break right here past that T connection, all these lots are without water service now, and there's really nothing we can do about it until the water main gets repaired. So what the goal is to establish a water main loop. So there's a dead-end water main here. There's also a dead-end water main here that goes to Public Works. So if we were to construct an 8-inch water main that connects those two segments, now we eliminate the dead end. Now we've got a lot of circulation that takes place here, because when any of these users have a water demand, then this water rotates around and you end that stagnation. It's very positive. Plus, if we lose this water main because of a water main break, then that's okay. It can be backfed. The water can be backfed through this water main system. So this is an example of the improvement that we're talking about to eliminate dead-end water mains. Okay, now we've got several improvements that we're recommending for this area. So this is Deer Creek right here. And then to the north up here is the Logistics Center. So the first thing that we're going to do is recommend eliminating a big dead-end water main, which is Deer Creek. Because you've got the water coming in from this section of the village, and then if we've got water mains that extend all the way out here, but aren't connected anywhere else. So you've got those same problems with stagnation and a lack of redundancy. So if we could build this 12-inch water main up Cottage Grove and then crossing Sauk Trail connecting to the Logistics Center, then all that goes away. We've got the good circulation pattern and we've got that redundancy. So that's huge. In addition to that, what we would recommend is an emergency interconnection to get Lake Michigan water. As probably everybody in this audience knows already, Bloom Trail gets Lake Michigan water, and if you think back to what happened to the village just a few years ago with loud chloride contamination, that nearly shut down every well that the village has. So the IDNR is very supportive of emergency interconnections, even with Lake Michigan water. They would absolutely recommend it. So the plan would be just build a very short section of water main here, put a flow meter on it with some valves, and connect that into the water main that supplies water from Bloom Trail and goes to South Chicago Heights down Sauk Trail. So for this relatively small improvement, the village would have a lot of reassurance moving forward that if anything like this ever happens, any contamination in the village's water supply, there's a backup water source right here. So it'd take a little bit of negotiating with the school in South Chicago Heights, but again, this would only be used in emergency. And this is sufficient to fill the water tower out to the east, the west water tower, but you wouldn't want to run the system for long off of there. So this, again, not a permanent connection, but an emergency connection. Okay, and the last example is again showing multiple improvements. So to get your bearings, this is Lincoln Meadows right here. This is 394. And then this is Sauk Point Industrial Park. So first improvement would be to eliminate the dead ends that are present in the industrial park by constructing the 16-inch water main to loop those together. So we talked about dead ends a lot already. The important part of this is another crossing of water main across 394. The village currently has one crossing that's a little bit to the north of here, just south of Sauk Trail. If that water main should have a break in it, and that water main goes down, all the village's wells are on the east side of 394. There's no way to get water across 394 to the rest of the village, to the logistics center, etc. That's a bad situation. This actually happened a few years ago, and Public Works got on their horse, got it repaired. We were able to provide enough water with the west water tower right there to prevent it from being an emergency situation. But this is a big defect in the village's system. So we really want another water main crossing so that if one goes down, we've got another one to supply the village. Connecting in with this crossing of 394, what we're proposing to do is to go north, connect in with Carolina, and establish that good circulation pattern. And then very importantly, coming down 394 and connecting in with what becomes Lincoln Meadows. I think we've discussed this in earlier presentations that I've done, but Lincoln Meadows is another huge dead end in the village, unfortunately. So there's nothing connected down here, stagnation, redundancy concerns. So if we could make this connection, then we got that circulation and we end the stagnation. So very important. Okay, so after we get done with the phase 2 improvements, now we move on to Lake Michigan water. Again, this requires a water loss less than 8%. We would submit a new application to the IDNR, and then we would negotiate water rates with water suppliers, all the potentials, just like we did a number of years ago. So it seems like over time, those water rates continue to increase. Chicago's raised their rates. Hammond is raising their rates in tandem with Chicago. So I don't know what they're going to be in a few years. We know what they are now. And I guess we'll just see what we get when we get to that point. After we've gone through those steps, then we move on with the design and construction of system improvements. So that consists of a supply water main coming from the water main supplier. And then it would also include a pump station with storage tanks. So the water would come in and it would fill into those storage tanks and then it would get pumped out to the rest of the building system. All right, now let's talk about cost. So we estimated the water rates for the recommended improvements based on the 2012 plan, which again was a few years ago. At the time, we estimated that Lake Michigan water would cost $10.37 per 1,000 gallons. And that was what was included on the referendum, that figure right there. So, subsequently, things have changed. First of all, the Hammond Water Works rate has increased. Secondly, the water rate has increased from $3.50 to $5.50 per thousand gallons to establish a break-even status. So what I mean by that is that the revenue that the village is bringing in exactly equals the cost for maintaining the system and supplying water. So basically, at that point, the village is making no money, no profit, nothing like that. It's just we're paying the bills at that state. And that was calculated by an accounting firm that the village hired. Also, a leak detection survey narrowed down the scope of the system repairs. At the time, I took my best guess at the cost and the magnitude of the project that would be required to reduce the significant water loss that the village had. And based on the results of the leak detection survey, it was money well spent. It's a lot less than I thought it was going to be, which lowers the cost. Also, there were detailed cost estimates prepared for the water main loops and the hydrant replacements, and that's what we just went through, the water main loops and the dead end elimination and all that stuff. That was associated with that report. And then finally, inflation. You know, every year, we see it in our industry, construction costs go up, cost of living goes up. That's just the way of the world. So we took that into account. So let's go through the calculations we just performed. So first of all, for the phase 1 improvements, which are the water treatment plant improvements, the former water rate was $5.50 per thousand gallons. The water rate was increased to pay for the loan for the water treatment plant improvements, and it was increased by $2, bringing it to $7.50 per thousand gallons. So if the loan is forgiven, then this increase is not required. I mean, that's the fantastic news here. So if you've got one takeaway today, yay, there's potential savings in our water rate. So what I'm doing moving forward with these calculations is assuming a water rate of $5.50 per thousand gallons, which is that break-even rate. For the phase 2 improvements, which includes the system repairs, the replacements, and the improvements, the repairs are assumed covered by the current water rate. So all the good work that Public Works is doing out in the system, finding those leaks, repairing them, I'm assuming that everything's done on the current operating budget, even if it's not all that expensive. I'm also assuming that the village would get an IEPA low interest loan to perform this project. So I estimated the water main loops and fire hydrant replacements at $5,150,000. This results in an annual loan repayment for 20 years of about $321,000. If you adjust that and figure out what that is in terms of dollars per thousand gallons, it's 88 cents per thousand gallons. And the replacement cost, which is basically we're going to put these new elements in the system, but eventually they're going to wear down and break like everything else. We want money in the kitty to make sure that we can replace that when it does go down. That's 35 cents per thousand gallons. So the water rate increase necessary for the system replacements and improvements is that 88 cents plus the 35 cents, which is $1.23 per thousand gallons. So the new calculated water rate to do the phase 2 improvements would be the $5.50 base rate plus the $1.23, giving you $6.73 per thousand gallons. And again, the current water rate is $7.50 per thousand, so it's a little bit less. Then getting to the phase 3 improvements for Lake Michigan water. What I'm doing is assuming that Chicago Heights is going to be the water supplier, and I'm assuming that their cost to Sauk Village today is going to be the same cost at the time that we approach them. probably not a valid assumption, costs will probably go up, but I gotta start with something. I'm also assuming that we're not getting an IEPA low interest loan for this, we're getting a general obligation or revenue bond. And the reason for that is because the IEPA just gave Sauk Village a loan, and they just forgave the loan in order to improve the water treatment plants. So if we go to the IEPA in a couple of years and say, you know what, we want to abandon everything that we just built and get Lake Michigan water, I think they're going to tell us to pound sand. So if we move forward, then I think we're thinking about getting a bond other than an IEPA loan. So an updated cost for the Lake Michigan water supply improvements, I estimated $9.8 million. This gives us an annual loan repayment of $786,000, and then broken down into dollars per thousand gallons, that's $2.15. Replacement cost, we tack on another 67 cents. And then the purchase price is $3.81. Again, that's assuming the Chicago Heights option. So the required water rate increase for Lake Michigan water is the sum of all those, which gives you $6.63 per thousand gallons, which results in a new projected water rate of $13.36 per thousand gallons. Now that's adding the $6.73 that we just calculated for the phase 2 improvements, adding what we would need for the Lake Michigan water improvements. So $13.36 per thousand. Obviously a lot more than what the bills are paying now. So, a summary of the water rates. For the phase 1 improvements, I'm assuming $5.50 per thousand gallons, again assuming that we get the loan forgiveness. Phase 2, $6.73 per thousand gallons, and that's 10% lower than the current water rate. And then phase 3 for Lake Michigan water, $13.36 per thousand, and that's 78% higher than the current water rate. So, what are we recommending? First, we absolutely recommend continuing to follow the prioritized phase approach to improve the water system. Again, we can't do it all at once. The village is just not in financial condition to do that. So let's continue to prudently move forward step by step based on what the village can afford. After the phase 1 work is completed, with confirmation of loan forgiveness, then we can proceed with the phase 2 improvements. So Public Works should continue to repair to reduce the water loss, and that's key because the water that's pumped through the system, that's lost revenue. So the lower our water loss, the better. Also apply for an IEPA low interest loan. So the village needs to determine, well, how much of a chunk of those phase 2 repairs is the village comfortable for applying for. Replace the defective water hydrants once the village gets the money. And then construct the additional water mains to improve the water quantity and quality. And the project, according to our calculations, can be funded through the current water rate increase. Now, we also consider adding what we call a phase 2B. Currently, there's a reactive strategy for water main repairs. And what I mean by that is, there's a water main break, okay, Public Works, mobilize, get out there, fix it, restore the water service for everyone. Some years it's not so bad, some years it's awful. It just depends on the year. So what we're recommending is a proactive water main replacement program. And what do I mean by that? It's basically determining, okay, well, this section of our village, we have to repair water main there every year. It's bad, the mains are old. It's just a matter of time before they go. And we've got a number of water mains that are like Swiss cheese. They've been repaired so many times. It'd be more cost effective just to replace those water mains than to continue to do these emergency repairs. Plus, you're going to free up your public works staff and make their lives less stressful by responding to these emergency situations. Many of Robinson's client communities have enacted this strategy, and they've been funded through a number of different means. Water fund revenue, so basically that water rate that's established and everybody's paying your water bills, hopefully that money comes in and can be dedicated to making these improvements. Also, an IEP low interest loan can be utilized, and then finally, water bonds can be utilized. Those are, again, double the interest rate though, so they're more expensive. So, again, don't expect you to really read this too clearly from your seats back there, but this is an exhibit that we prepared about 4 years ago. And what it does is it shows all the water mains in Sauk Village. And it's color-coded out to the right here to show how old the water mains are. So what I want you to take away from this exhibit is that in the heart of the village, this whole area right here, we've got water mains that are 40 to 45 years old. That's old. Since I've been here, we've never done a water main replacement program. So the mains just get older and older and older. And like anything, mains are going to fail. Material is going to break down. The best water main pipe that you can put in the ground would be buccal iron or PVC. And those have a pretty long expected life. The best you're going to get out of those is probably 100 years, and that's the best you're going to get, okay? But what you've got installed here is materials that are nowhere near that quality. So you're going to get a lot of water main breaks. You're going to get main failures. It's just a matter of time. So, Sauk Village isn't the only one facing this. This is everywhere. Every community that we deal with, they're all experiencing this. You've got some newer sections of water main, Deer Creek, maybe 15 years. Over in Plum Creek, maybe 20 years. Just the center, fairly new. But on the whole, this whole section, 40 to 45-year-old water mains. So what do you do about it? What you do is you prioritize the replacement of the most effective water mains. Public Works knows where these are. I talked to Kevin. He knows where his bad sections are in the village. Those are the ones that need to be replaced first. So you attack it little by little. You set up a plan. You say, okay, this year we're going to do 1 mile water main repairs, and it's going to cost us $500,000. And then next year we're going to do $300,000. And go, 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 go. And then you can begin to project what your results are going to be. So what you're going to do is you're going to gradually renew your aging water system infrastructure. If you just ignore it and let it go, eventually it's going to fail, and it's going to cost you 4 times as much to fix, rather than if you just do it up front. So it's the smart way to improve your system. And like I said before, you get a reduction with your emergency water main repairs. And this just doesn't include water main. It includes valves. There are a number of defective valves out there, leaking valves. You got hydrants. We talked about those already. That is key. You've got to get those replaced. Water meters. Fortunately for Sauk Village, your water meters are relatively new. So, we're talking somewhere between 5 and 15 years old. So those that are recently calibrated, no problem with those. But think ahead, 10, 20 years from now you're going to have old water meters that need to be replaced, like they were replaced, 5 to 10 years ago. Also, your elevated tanks. There have been some patch repairs that have been made on those in terms of the piping when they sprung leaks. But bigger picture, those tanks, they're made out of steel. They need to be repainted every so often, or that steel will begin to corrode and you'll lose your tank. conducted, their status, their integrity is evaluated, and then recommendations for repairs are made. But those tanks need to be repainted every 15 to 20 years, and it's a relatively expensive operation. So that's coming in the future, kind of whether you like it or not. So it's better to just plan for that and have that budgeted. And then if the village were to go to lake water, we would have the same situation with ground storage reservoirs eventually. And then also with the water treatment plants. If you would have given me an unlimited budget, then you'd have brand new water treatment plants. The construction project that was undertaken did a great job in restoring the vital portions of those plants. So you've got a lot of new within those plants, but you've got a lot of old too that still needs to be replaced eventually. So again, that's a matter of time, and it would be appropriate to plan for those repairs and replacements. Continuing on, after completion of phase 2, proceed to phase 3 for Lake Michigan water. So contact those Lake Michigan water suppliers for updated purchase prices. Like I mentioned before, Hammond Water Works is expected to increase their rates in tandem with Chicago. Then complete a new rate analysis to update the required water rate. I'm calculating it at $13 or so a thousand today. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you're ready for lake water, it's going to be a different cost. Then submit the allocation application to the IDNR, and then make sure that we coordinate with Candlelight Village and Weatherstone Lakes to make sure that they also submit applications so that the process can go very smoothly and we can get approval for that application. Okay. So that's everything I've got. So my understanding is
Board, any questions?
does the board have any questions?
I do have one. I was writing down. You answered most of them. I just wanted to know the estimated time, say, for phase 2 to complete that.
If you do it all in one big chunk, that's a large project. I would say IPA loan process, probably 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you. I know that I had a couple questions, but I know it's been a while since we had a presentation, so thank you for coming out and kind of reintroducing us to what you guys did before. And I look forward to more pricing, better idea of pricing. You know, this is the direction that we're kind of going to go down. I'm curious to know how much the pricing is going to be different as far as water rates going up and how that can affect the situation. But thank you. I hope this was helpful for the residents. I know that it's kind of good to have a reminder, especially with you and board members who weren't here for the first time. So thank you again.
Well, I'd like to say, thank you, Jim, for doing this, and I think the board gives us a little bit better understanding. I know that Jim, figures are, I guess you want to say, very close to a perfect growth. We talk about the 550 that we raised it to at first, that's so we cut even, and we're paying our bills. So Jim has been working with our Public Works Department. We've been working on trying to get, water mains repaired, water main breaks, fire hydrants. They've been doing a great job on addressing those because we know that we're losing water there. The latest water rates was based off of the entire year 2014, if I remember right, so it wasn't a month-by-month breakdown. So if we took the average of the entire year, it seems like we're still pretty high, right around the 32% range. Again, we know that it fluctuates if you go month by month because they're out there repairing Next thing we're going to be doing is getting with Mohan and looking at what we're receiving for the residents that are paying, because based off all the figures, that's if 100% of the residents pay their water bill, which we know we're currently not at. So we're looking at what percentage is not paying and what we have to estimate, because once you go to Michigan Water, you're on a meter, and whatever comes into the village, the village is responsible for paying. So that's another thing that we're looking at in our figures, because that will be based off what the rate is. Again, the rates that Jim was quoted is in a perfect world, 100% paid, everyone's paying. So that's at $13 and some odd cents. The other thing too is we're going to look at is we'll probably end up having to go back to another referendum, because the referendum that those residents passed was for $10.37. It was just under $11. So as the board remembers, that rate was put in place shortly after those residents passed it, and we lowered that rate back down, and we found out a lot of the obstacles we were going to go through in meeting with the IDNR, knowing that we weren't really getting water for later on down the road. So Jim, you've done a great job getting the information. I think the important thing is to realize that the residents did ask for additional water. It was twofold. One, shall we pursue additional water? Sauk Village has continued to pursue additional water. We've had multiple meetings with Jim, with IDNR. We've also talked to the communities to try to get rates. The other thing too is they said at a rate of $10, it's under $11. So that second part of that referendum, as of right now, today, Sauk Village cannot meet that second part of the referendum. And I think probably one of the biggest fears we have is that cost continues to go up every single year. I think we're keeping a close eye, especially on Hammond. We already know the city of Chicago raised their rates. And we already know Hammond has already said they're going to raise their rates to be equal to what Chicago is. So that $13 is based off what the current rate is with Hammond. Not based on them raising their rates to Chicago's rates. So we'll pull everything together. I think Jim, we probably should do this maybe quarterly. Get you back out here, continue to give the board an update on where we're at with tonight's update. It's fantastic. I appreciate you for doing all the work and getting that. And I know the residents had some other questions that I talked to you earlier about. We'll get those questions and then try to get you another board meeting before the next quarter. We'll get those questions so you can give your reports and reports on Tuesday night. Appreciate it.
I do have one last question for Jim. Also, yes, you did what you've done before, a fabulous job in explaining. I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this. In order to get to phase 3, which would be ultimately Chicago Water, you're recommending that we go to phase 2 and then to phase 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm sure some of those questions will be asked. And so you cannot jump from where we're at now to phase 3 without completing phase 2.
Yes.
We've already started in phase 2. We're doing phase 1 and phase 2 simultaneously. So Public Works is working on repairing leaks, and working on repairing fire hydrants. And what they didn't talk about was, we talked about the cost of fire hydrants. Some of the grant money has already come in through the state to buy those fire hydrants, so we can get out there and purchase fire hydrants. So we already do have a plan in place, especially with fire hydrants we know that don't work. They have to be replaced. They are prepping and preparing these sites throughout the week as they get time. And then on the weekends, they're going in and completely removing those fire hydrants and replacing the weekends. And we probably should have them give an update. Tuesday night meetings on how many fire hydrants they replaced and how many repairs. They've done repairs also.
So, Mayor, you say we're doing it now. That's what I was asking about a month ago in the meeting, what we're going to do with the extra $2. And now, the way that Jim explained it, it makes sense that we could use it for that. Because I was asking to have that money put set aside until such time, instead of just using it for something else. It's set aside for what you're talking about, phase 2, it makes sense. And we're going to do that. But now, just which you have 2 scenarios. One would be if we do get the loan paid by the grant, and then number 2 would be if we don't get the loan paid by the grant, how much it would be. And I just wanted to have, that was the reason I made that comment back then, is to designate that money for that reason, if it is going to be for that. Now you're saying that we're currently doing phase 2. I understand that. We are doing some repairs, but we were hoping that we were going to get some more money from the government in the form of a grant for the fire hydrants. But now the way you have it now, it would come out of the raise or the extra $2, which is at $7.50. The extra $2 would go towards that. That's what you just got to explain. And that's what I was asking back then, that we designate that money so it just doesn't, it's not just there, we just, use it for whatever, because if we did get the loan forgiven by the government, then we would still be charging the people, and I wanted that money to be set aside. The way you explained it now, yes, that would be a good thing, that we could have it for that draw from it to repair those things, if that's the way we go. But now, Mayor, you're saying that you may have to have another referendum, and with that referendum, would it be to include Lake Michigan, or would it be a referendum to go for it or don't go for it? That would be something that you
And you bring up a good point. I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to discuss it at the board, but I don't think we're ready for that referendum. First of all, is getting into phase 2, getting the repairs and stuff that are needed. As we get ready to go into phase 3, we will definitely have to go back in front of those residents, because they've set an amount that they've approved that we go for with Michigan Water, and that was like just under $11. And as Jim stated, as of right now, we are unable to meet that referendum requirement. So for us to do the additional charge, we definitely have to go to the residents. But again, the needed repairs in phase 2, they're needed. As Jim said, we have majority of our village, the heart of our village is infrastructure that's over 40 years old. So by us getting in there and fixing these mains and these valves, and like Jim said, maybe do a mile or whatever, $100,000, $200,000 a year worth of repairs, that will make it where we're not constantly going back and fixing one spot here and then going 20 feet later and doing another spot here, and then it can use the word Swiss cheese. We're putting in all brand new through those areas. So I would encourage you to continue to work with Kevin, as you said. Kevin's been with us for quite a few years. He knows where the main areas are. All right.
Can we ask questions?
Trustees, anything? That's our motion to adjourn.
Can we have questions? Can we ask questions? Ask questions.
You know what, I'm just going to make one statement. This was a presentation given to the board. The residents were given the opportunity to come and listen to the presentation. So, with that said, we have an agenda in place. I ask for a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Meeting adjourned.